Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the diligent leads surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Our financial difficulties are not because of the amount of money we make, but because of the amount of money we spend. Spend it wisely. But sadly, we're in the last chapter of James. We have enjoyed this study. I've enjoyed this study. It's been kind of a punch in the face a lot of Sundays, hasn't it? For me, it has anyway. And today will be no different because James doesn't pull any punches. He just gets right to the point. Now, this is a really odd section of James. Not an odd section. There's nothing odd about it. But it's, he's been, for the most part, talking to Christians. He's been talking to believers, talking to those that are mature in the faith. And then he seems to kind of shift a little bit to talk to the unbeliever in James 5 and verse 1. Now listen to what it says. Come now, you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. So now he's talking to rich people, people that have a lot of money, but maybe are outside of the church. He says, your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasures in the last days. Indeed, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cry of the reapers have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned, you have murdered unjust. He does not resist you. Have a good day. There's nothing real positive about that whole speech, that whole kind of section of Scripture, and it seems so contrary to what James is talking about here. But I believe what he's doing here is he's warning the rich. He is warning those that have money about the future and about what the future holds. He's warning us about the wrong ways to use our money or use our wealth. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, is being wise with your wealth. Now, before you write me off and say, well, I'm not wealthy, so this doesn't apply to me, let me just give you a little hint. Everybody in this room is wealthy, okay? We have a group that's going this week to El Salvador on a missions trip, and I ask that you would pray for them. You want to see poverty leave the United States and go to El Salvador or go to Mexico and go to the outer circle of Mexico. There's parts of Mexico that are actually very wealthy, but the part that I've been on a missions trip, or you go to Jamaica and you see these orphans that have nothing. We are a very, very wealthy country, and we have more money. Even the poor of us have an incredible amount of money. There are poor people in our country. There are people in need, but most of us sitting in this room right now are wealthy. So you cannot check out today. You may be considered poor in American standards, but we all have wealth. And what James is warning us here is there are some things that we need to be careful about. There are some things that we need to watch out for in regard to the wealth that God has blessed all of us with. The first thing that he warns us about is in verse number 1 when he says, don't trust it. Don't trust in your wealth. And when he says, come now you rich, weep and howl for your miseries that are coming upon you. So what happens a lot of times when we have money is it tends to give us a sense of security. In fact, it tends to give us a false sense of security. That my future is secure, that everything's going to be good, that there's not going to be any problems. And so I tend to look at the future with a certain degree of optimism, or it's going to be all right because of the money that I have in the bank. I read something this week that only 24% of Americans have at least $1,000 in their savings account. Well, a lot of people are shocked by that statistic, but what that tells you is that 76% of Americans have more than that. So there's a certain degree of, there's a comfort, there's a security, there's a trust that I have that the future is going to be okay. And what James is writing is saying, look, it's very important, Rich, to understand that your money can't buy you a spot in heaven. So you can have all of the comfort in the world, and you can have all the best things that money can buy you, but it's not going to buy you into heaven. One time, John Rockefeller, who was one of the richest men in America, his accountant famously said, whenever John Rockefeller died, they asked him, how much did he leave? And his accountant said he left everything. He left everything. He couldn't take anything with him. Harrison Ford has famously said, they asked Harrison Ford once, nobody in the history of movie making has made more money than Harrison Ford has. And he was being interviewed years ago on Larry King, and they asked Larry King asked Harrison Ford, he says, if you could take all your money and you could turn it in, what would you turn it in for? And he says, if I could take all my money and turn it in, I'd turn it in for peace. He's the richest money maker in the history of movie making, but he said, I'd take all my money and give it back if I could have peace. So you can't buy heaven, you can't buy peace, you can't buy things that matter, but yet we often trust in it. The temptation we have when we face wealth is to trust in it. We have this much in the bank, so we're good. And that's what James is warning about here. He's kind of telling us that this is something we need to watch out for when it comes to money. Don't trust in it. Instead, the better way to do with our money is to relinquish it daily. And that doesn't mean give it all away, but it means relinquish my trust in it daily. Relinquish it daily. Let me read to you what Paul said in 1 Timothy 6:17. Command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty. So if you've got a lot of money, don't walk around thinking you're all that because you have more than somebody else. Don't get arrogant because of the amount of money you have. This is what I want you to focus on, nor to trust in uncertain riches. But instead, trust in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So we have a God that has blessed us with stuff, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying that stuff. I think sometimes in America we can tend to feel bad or guilty because we have a good time with what we have. That's a mistake. But the bigger mistake is when I trust in my wealth, when I'm leaning on my wealth rather than leaning on the Lord. I should not rest in the fact that I have a lot of money in the bank. I should rest in the fact that God is in control, that Jesus is in control, that there's nothing that's happening in my life that He is not orchestrating. And maybe God has right now put you in a position where you're making a lot of money and your bank account is full and you're out of debt and you're in a good spot financially. Don't trust in that. Rather, trust in God and what He has done for you. And that's what James is trying to emphasize here, because the rich man tends to think his future is secure because of his wealth. And he says, no, my future is secure. And your future is secure, not because of the money we have, but because of the God we have in our life, because we have trusted in Jesus Christ, and our future is secure. And so that's the first kind of advice that James is giving us, kind of in a rough way, to don't trust in your money. Don't trust in wealth. Number two, the second thing he says is don't hoard it. That's where he talks about in verses 2 and 3. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasure in the last days. What you accumulate will deteriorate. And God doesn't want you to get wealthy just for the sake of getting wealthy. He wants you to put that in circulation. In the New Testament times, you can hoard wealth three ways. One is in stockpiling food. 2 is in collecting clothes, and 3 is in gathering precious metals and jewels. Well, one thing about food is, even in our processed food era, it still goes bad. Last night, man, you ever just crave cereal? It's really weird. But my favorite, I have a couple of favorites, but my favorite is Honey Nut Cheerios. I love Honey Nut Cheerios. And so I go to the cupboard and I open it up and there's Honey Nut Cheerios there. Now, I don't remember the last time I ate Honey Nut Cheerios. So I pulled it out. The bag was open a little bit. Dumped it in, put the milk in, took a bite, and it's like, working. It had been sitting there a while. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? But I ate it anyway. And it was good. But I did throw the rest of it away. So I actually remember when we bought that. Karen and I were in Walmart. We're walking through the store, and we were down the cereal aisle, and I was picking out my favorite cereal. And so this was literally like probably a month ago, and I'd eaten a little bit of it, and it had sat there for a long time. What happened to it? eroded. It got old. So then I just start going through our cupboard, and I'm throwing these chips out. And isn't it amazing how food does not have this lifelong endurance? There's a point where it gets old. So you can spend all your money and you can buy all this food, but it's going to decay. It's going to be you're not going to be able to eat it. But yet people stockpile food. You go to their house and their just cupboards are filled with food, and they have stuff crammed way back in the back of the refrigerator that's growing its own life form back there. And it's like, but we do this because we live in this abundance kind of, this is so foreign to us in the sense that Jesus said to pray this way, pray that our daily bread would be provided, but we have bread for days. And so the encouragement here is what he's saying is people are hoarding stuff. They're hoarding food. They're hoarding food and they're hoarding clothes. I mean, our clothes are out of control, are they not? I mean, we go into our closets and it's like, I got nothing to wear, and our closets are full. And we're kind of stockpiling clothes. And I'm not against getting new stuff and wearing new clothes. That's not the point. But when we just stockpile and we gather precious metals and jewels, and this is what James is warning about. He's warning about, don't hoard stuff. Don't hoard. This is not a good use of the money that God has blessed you with. Instead, the better way is to save it faithfully. Save it faithfully. And there's a couple of verses in Proverbs 21:5, for example. The plans of the diligent lead surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Proverbs 21:20 says, there is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. So the unwise way, or the incorrect use of our wealth, is to hoard stuff. The better way is to, I think John Rockefeller had a good philosophy. He says you should save 10%, tithe 10%, and live on the 80%. Live within your means. Don't hoard it. Don't buy a bunch of stuff. But learn to save it faithfully. Be good stewards with the money that God has given to you. Invest it. Don't just spend it on foolish stuff that will eventually deteriorate. The third thing that he warns about here is when it comes to those of us that have wealth, and all of us have wealth, is don't steal it. Don't steal it. Indeed, he says, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you have kept back by fraud, cry out, but the cries of the reaper have reached the ears of the Lord of the Sabbath. Don't use dishonest means to rip people off. If there's one thing that ought to define a child of God, is that they are above reproach, that they pay their taxes, that they pay their bills on time, that they don't rip people off, that they don't sell stuff that they know is broken for a price that is as if it was new, that we're honest with people. We don't steal from people to pad our own pockets. This is not how we are to live. And this is how that James is warning this group of people. It's easy a lot of times to take the philosophies of the world and we kind of adapt them to our lives, but he's saying don't steal. Don't steal from others to pad your own profit. Instead, the better way than stealing is to earn it honestly. Instead, earn it honestly. Let me read you 3 verses. Proverbs 13:11. Wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Proverbs 22:16. He who oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he who gives to the rich will surely come to poverty. So if you have money and you are oppressing the poor with your money, this is displeasing to God. Proverbs 28:20. A faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who hastens to be rich will not go unpunished. Look, it's your money and you can do whatever you want with it, and you have to answer to God for it, but don't waste your money on the lottery. It's just this desire for a quick gain. A quick gain. Just earn it honestly. What matters to God is not so much how much money you make, but how you make it. God cares about how you make your money. And if you're ripping people off to make money, this is unacceptable to God, and He will not bless that. And it will cost you in the end. So get a job, work hard, do the best you can, be honest, be above board, and you can go to sleep at night knowing that you have treated people right and done the right thing and done your best, and this is the best way to make money. Don't steal from others in the process. Let me just give you some guidelines to how much should I work? A lot of people get, well, I'm going to work and work. We do love to work in this country. So how much should I work? You should work as long as it doesn't hurt your own health. Some people literally work themselves to death. Not wise. You should work hard as long as it doesn't hurt my family. How many homes have fallen apart because kids are being ignored while parents are too busy making money to buy things for the kids? 3, don't hurt. It's okay to work hard as long as it doesn't hurt other people. This is the exact opposite of the world's view, which says it's dog eat dog, get all you can all you get, send out the can and spoil the rest. That's kind of the philosophy of the world, right? And then I would challenge you, work as hard as you can as long as it doesn't hurt my spiritual life. So these are some philosophies to kind of think about when it comes to making money. Don't steal it, earn it honestly. Number 4, don't waste it. Don't waste it. He talks about that in verse number 5. You have lived on the earth in pleasure and luxury. You have fattened your hearts as in a day of slaughter. One of the greatest temptations, I think, as we make more and more money, we're tempted to spend it selfishly on ourselves. And I've said this before. I'm worth it. Right? I can afford it, so why not? The more money you make, the easier it is to waste it. And so we do tend to say things like, I'm worth it, and I deserve this, and I've worked hard, and there's nothing wrong with having nice stuff, but we shouldn't necessarily, just because I make a certain amount of money doesn't mean that I need to spend a certain amount of money on wasteful things. Instead, the better way is to spend it wisely. Spend it wisely. Let me read you a couple of verses. Proverbs 13:6. Righteousness guards him whose way is blameless, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent leads surely to plenty, but those of everyone who is hasty surely to poverty. Our financial difficulties are not because of the amount of money we make, but because of the amount of money we spend. So what's the better way? Make a budget. I remember when Karen and I first got married. So when we first got married, I was a security guard and Karen worked at Walmart. And my wife actually made more money than me. I made $4.75 as a security guard carrying a weapon. Anyway, and my wife made our combined income was less than $10 an hour. When we first got married. She was a cashier at Walmart. And so this was our combined income, is less than $10 an hour. Well, a year after we got married, I got a job at a place called Dominic's Finer Foods, and it was a warehouse loading pallets for the Dominic's Finer Foods, which is in the Chicagoland area. And I went from $4.25 an hour to $16.75 an hour. Yeah, quadrupled my income. The problem is before, we didn't really live on a budget because it was like whatever, $9 an hour, it's like whatever comes in is going out somewhere, paying food and rent. We lived pretty simple. Both of our cars were paid for, and we're just getting by. But we went to $16.75 an hour, and you thought I was making $1 million a year. And I got in trouble with that because I went out and I'm just charging stuff and buying stuff and thought, man, well, I make 4 times what I used to make. And I got in a lot of trouble with it. I actually had to go to my father and ask my dad for a loan to help us get out of debt. It was just a very eye-opening experience for me. And my problem is that I had more money coming in than I'd ever had, but I didn't have a budget. I wasn't telling my money where to go. I was just buying whatever I wanted to buy because I thought I could afford it. It was a mistake. I was wasting my money. And so our financial difficulties are not because of the amount of money we make, but because of the amount of money we spend. So make a budget. Tell your money where to go rather than wondering where it went. Number 5, the fifth thing when it comes to money and how we can be wise with our wealth is don't abuse it. Don't abuse it. You have condemned, you have murdered the just. He does not resist you. I know you find this shocking, but there's a lot of things in the world that never changes. So evidently in James's time, the rich were buying off judges and circumventing justice. That doesn't happen today, does it? Not at all. Sarcasm, hashtag sarcasm, right? Now let me just challenge those of you that do have a lot of money. When you have money, it gives you influence and it gives you authority. We listen to people who make more money than people who are poor. Why do they get away with the things they get away with? Because they have power. And so if you have a lot of power, if you have a lot of money, people tend to listen to you. So this is the challenge for you, which is, how am I going to use that power? How am I going to use that the money that I have that I know gives me the ear of people? Am I going to use that to kind of advance my agenda, or what am I going to do with it? And that's really a temptation that you'll face. You know, I've had people walk up to me here and hand me their tithe checks. I don't want your tithe check. Put it in the plate, okay? But in a sense, it's kind of a way of trying to, hey, look at how much I give. Don't use your money that way. Don't use your money to kind of abuse people or intimidate people or kind of lord over people and say, this is what I give. Or this is how much money I have, and I could shut you down, and I could run you into the ground. And this is a wrong use of money. Don't abuse the money that you have been blessed with. Instead, give it generously. Give it generously. Psalms 112:5. A good man deals graciously and lends. He will guide his affairs with discretion. So don't abuse money. See that God has given you a lot of money so that you then in turn can be a blessing to other people. In order to live abundantly, I must give abundantly. You know, the word miserable is, the root word of that word is miser. You can't take what you have with you, but you can send it on ahead. Now, I'm going to do something really crazy in here. I'm not going to do something crazy, but I'm going to show a video of a Los Angeles Raider quarterback. So all the Chiefs fans in the room are going to be mad at me. But his name is Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the quarterback for the Los Angeles Raiders. And Derek Carr this week signed the largest contract in NFL history. 5 years, $125 million. Yes, that's what I said too, all right? Getting the old arm warmed up. Anyway, but 5 years, $125 million. So he had a press conference this week, and they put him out in front of all the reporters, and they talking to him about this greatest, the highest contract in NFL history. And Derek Carr is a strong believer. And so what I wanted to play for you is I wanted to play for you a 1-minute conversation. A reporter asked him about, what are you going to do with the $125 million? So let's watch what he said.
Your priorities are in life and everything are well known, but it is a huge contract. And you're not really an extravagant guy, but is there one thing that you're going to sort of splurge on that you can let us know?
Chick-fil-A, probably Chick-fil-A. I've been eating clean. Lad, we got Lad here. He's been having me eat clean. I'll probably get some Chick-fil-A, but no. First thing I'll do is I'll pay my tithe like I have since I was in college, getting $700 on a scholarship check. That won't change. I'll do that. I'll probably give my wife something nice. Even though she begs me not to, she still gets coupons. Ever since I've known her, she finds coupons. She gets online trying to find discounts and all those things, and none of that's going to change. The exciting thing for me, money-wise, honestly, is that this money's going to help a lot of people. I'm very thankful to have it, that it's in our hands, because it's going to help people not only in this country but in a lot of countries around the world, and that's what's exciting to me.
So yeah. So even though he's a Raider, he seems like a pretty good guy, right? So we're still going to cheer for the Chiefs, but I wanted to play that video for you because I wanted to point out several things that he said. So what are you going to do with 125 million? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tithe on it. What? So that's 12.5 million. Tithe is a 10%. So that's 12.5 million he's going to tithe to his local church. So wherever him and his wife go to church. Now he doesn't get all 125 million; he gets 25 million a year. So I don't know what's his check. So I'm not going to do the math in my head here, but let's say he gets $2 million a week. So he's going to put $200,000 in the plate. You know, that'd pay for a parking lot, wouldn't it? Anyway, so but I'm going to say whatever church he attends has very nice facilities. So anyway. But I thought that was really cool, and a lot of you like 200,000. But let me tell you, you hear what he said? He said, when I was in college, I got a $700 check. You know what he did? He took the $700 check that he got from the school as a scholarship thing, and he took $70 and put it in the plate. So let me tell you, if you've been doing that since you were in high school or since college, and you've been given 10%, it's nothing to give 12.5 million or 12.5 million because you've done it your entire life. This is what's come in. And I give back 10% to God for it's an opportunity for me to say thank you to God for how he's blessed me. My parents taught me this when I was a little kid. They sat me down. They said, okay, Mark, because I used to mow yards. That was my first job. I'd mow yards and somebody give me $10. Here's $10 to mow my yard. And my dad would say, okay, let's go to the bank. Let's break down the 10. You give $1 to the Lord. And it's a way of saying thank you. So I would go to church the next Sunday, and I would get my envelope, and I'd put Mark Doss at the bottom and $1 in tithe. And so then when I got a big yard and made $20, I'd give $2. And so if you've lived kind of this way your entire life, where it's just this is what we do, we take whatever we have, the income that comes in, and I still do it to this day. I get paid every Thursday. I come into church. The first thing I do is I go to my office. I sit down at my office. I open Topeka Baptist Church's website. I go to the top right-hand corner where it says give. I collect give, and I give our tithe for what the church has paid us for the year. So it's kind of, you pay us and we give it back to you. In a sense, we give what God has blessed us with financially. So that's just what I've done all my life, because 10% is God's. And then what God, as my income has increased over the years, I've been able to give more. So we give to missions, and then we're giving to the parking lot expansion. I don't say that I just say I'm humbled that God would let me make a penny, so I want to give back to him. And I want to be a blessing to others. I don't want to use my money and hold it over people's heads. I want to be a blessing to people. I don't want to abuse my wealth. And that's what I get with this car kid. Like, look, I want to help. And I have read up a lot on him where he is very generous to missionaries, and he is very generous to mission projects, and he gives a lot of money away. Don't abuse your money. Don't think you're something because you got a lot of money. Man, you see it as this is a way that you can bless people. This is a way that you can bless people. You can bless your kids, you can bless your friends, you can bless there's just so many ways that you can use money in a positive way, but the sad reality is a lot of people use it in a negative way. I'll take you out of the will. That's an abuse of money. Instead, give it generously. So there's a right and a wrong way to use money. A little different sermon today, but I think it's helpful for all of us because all of us deal with it, don't we? We all have money. We all deal with it. Don't trust it. I got this much, so I'm good. No, you got God, so you're good. You're God's kid. Your money can fly away. Every time I think I'm getting ahead, We go to the dentist. Right? Another crown. They ain't giving them things away. You know, you know what it is for me? It's God's way of just saying, you're not in control, man. You can't put a lot of stock in the fact that I got this much, so I'm good. Things happen in life. There is emergency room visits. There's all these. So you don't trust in that. I trust in what gets me up in the morning and what helps me get through a day is not a certain amount of money I got in the bank, but I know God is working in my life. And God will see me through. And if I get in this pinch financially, I'm not going to freak out because I know the Lord will see me through. And what happens is though I can trust in it. Don't trust in your wealth. Don't hoard it. Don't get so much stuff. There is something to minimalization, living your life simpler, not having so much stuff. I think that's a biblical way. Don't hoard a bunch of stuff. We don't need all that we have to live on. So don't hoard it. Don't steal it. Instead, earn it honestly. Don't rip people off. If you're in sales, be honest with people. Care about people. And if you care about people, I think that you'll have a good business. You rip me off once, I'm never coming back. So earn it honestly. Don't steal it. Don't waste it. Don't waste the money that God has given you. Don't waste it. Don't spend money just because you got it and you think you have to spend it. And don't abuse it. You got a lot of money, don't abuse it. Be an encouragement to people. Don't tear people down with it. Lift people up.